Self-assessment task 1.1. Read the feature below and then answer the questions that follow. Survey on the economics of aging, the luxury of longer life. In the world's richest countries, when you retire at 65, you can expect to live on average for another 15 or 20 years. 100 years ago, you would, on average, have been already dead. And the late 20th century has brought to many the ultimate gift, the luxury of aging. But like any luxury, aging is expensive. Governments are fretting about the cost already, but they also know that far worse is to come. Over the next 30 or 40 years, the demographic changes of longer lives and fewer births will force most countries to rethink in fundamental ways their arrangements for paying for and looking after older people. Thanks to state transfers, being old in many developed countries no longer means being poor. Old people expect decent pensions to live on. They will make heavier demands on medical services. Some will need expensive nursing care since younger relatives will be concerned about making the most of their own lives. At the same time, the number of people in work who will have to foot the bill will stay much the same. Consequently, each worker will have to carry a much heavier burden. Mass survival to ripe old age will not be confined to rich countries. Most developing countries, whose populations are now much younger than the developed world's, are starting to age fast. This is particularly true for Caribbean economies such as Barbados, as the population pyramids below indicate. The new combination of age and relative poverty will create many problems for such countries. These problems are already familiar to industrialized European countries, and the United States. The problem for poorer countries is that they have fewer resources to draw on and tackle these pressures. In addition, the ethical problems over the use of scarce resources will be magnified. Source: The Economist, January 27, 1996, and the Census Bureau, 2006. Figure 1.2. Population Pyramid Summary for Barbados. Question number 1. Using the table, summarize the projected changes in population of Barbados from 2000 to 2025. Discuss the likely effects of these changes on decisions concerning A. What to produce, B. How to produce, C. For whom to produce. Comment on the ethical problems over the use of scarce resources facing governments of Barbados in meeting the needs of its changing population. Self-assessment task 1.2. Read the feature below and answer the question that follow. Rich and miserable, or poor and happy? It is often said that those who say that money can't buy you happiness simply don't know where to shop. After all, spending money makes you happy, right? Wrong. According to The Economist, it's a myth that the more we spend, the better we feel. The link between happiness and income/consumption is tenuous. The West is much richer than it was 50 years ago, but in the United States, reported happiness has gone up only a fraction over this period. In Europe, satisfaction with life is actually lower than it was 20 years ago. This is evidenced in a number of ways. For example, in rich countries, male suicide rates have gone up, unemployment rates have increased, unhappiness is far more prevalent amongst the jobless. According to Professor Andrew Oswald of Warwick University, money is to blame for the state of affairs. He argues that it buys very little well-being, yet everyone wants more of it. He said it is asking to the spectator who stands up at the football match to get a better view. By the time all of the neighbors are standing up, everyone is no better off than before. Other economies agree. Yi Wao-ning, a Chinese economist, has argued that the environment costs of the addition of production and consumption to keep up with the Joneses may make people worse off. Robert Frank, an American economist, argues that we would be better off if we agreed to consume less. We will work less, meet other people more, and regularly cut down on workplace commuting. These arguments are unlikely to go down well in emerging economies. It is through growth that people are materially better off. It's surely wrong to deny these benefits to the population of China, Malaysia, Malaysia, Pakistan, South Africa, and so on. Or is it better to learn from these mistakes made by countries such as the USA and many UA member states? If yes, then these economies and others should be transferred more resources to things that make people happy, such as a better education, good health, and decent environment. Source: The Guardian, 22nd of November, 1997. The article exercises the view that through economic growth, people may actually be worse off. What other examples can you think of which might support the views of these economists? Do you see any conflict between these views and your understanding of the economic problem? Self-assessment task 1.3. Read the feature below and then answer the questions that follow. Sweet dreams. High oil prices mean sugar could be used as a fuel source. The Caribbean sugar industry is suddenly looking sweet again after years of decline. That's because it is a source of ethanol, the alternative fuel that some see as the answer to rocketing oil prices. Ethanol, a cleaner burning alternative fuel that can be made from corn or sugarcane, is also drawing renewed government interest and was a key topic of leaders from Central America, Mexico, Colombia, and the Dominican Republic when they met last week. Markets for ethanol are growing due to the insatiable demand for fuel and increase in demand for alternative energy sources. However, Caribbean sugar is particularly attractive because of the region's preferential trade access to the U.S. market. In the Dominican province of Monte Plata, a consortium led by the Belgian-based Alco Group has announced plans to build an ethanol plant, while the Dominican Sugar Cooperative says it's in talks with other partners to convert at least one sugar mill into an ethanol distillery. People are sort of tripping over one another to put up with the mills, says Lester Lives, an economist professor at Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, who studied alternative fuels. In Jamaica, Octal, a company based in Brazil, one of the world's leading ethanol producers, sought to buy out the struggling state-owned Sugar Corporation of Jamaica so it could enter the UK market without paying tariffs under the regional free trade agreement. Brazil also announced plans to advise other countries, including Haiti and Guatemala, on producing fuel. In the next 10 to 15 years, ethanol will be the king of fuels, says Juan Anapa Japa, general manager of Dominican Republic's National Sugar Cooperative. This wave of interest comes just as sugar production was fading fast throughout the Caribbean, with growers turning to other crops and sending fewer machete-wielding workers into the cane fields. The industry has fallen on hard times because of free trade deals and competition from cheaper sources of sugar, such as Brazil. Sketch a production possibilities curve to show the choices that are now facing Caribbean sugar farmers. 2. Once your diagram, show how a reduction in sugarcane production for food and rum products from 80 to 50% of total production affects the amount that is going to produce ethanol. Use the concept of opportunity cost to explain this trade-off. 3. Modify your diagram to show how the PPC changes due to better cultivation methods that result in more sugarcane being produced, the damaging effects of tornado that could result in less sugarcane being produced. Number 4. On your diagram, show and explain points where production is efficient and inefficient. Self-assessment task 1.4. Explain the choices facing decision makers in developing economies shown in figure 1.7. Discuss the difficulties they face and suggest possible solutions to their problems. A. Hydroelectric power station in Africa. Self-assessment task 1.4. Explain the choices facing decision makers in the developing culture shown in figure 1.7. Discuss the difficulties they face and suggest possible solutions, this is figure 1.7, to their problems. Self-assessment task 1.5. 1.3. The economic structure of India and Pakistan in 2008. India, Pakistan, agriculture, industry, services. Total output percent, labor force percentage, total output percentage, labor force percentage. Using the information in table 1.3, compare the economic structure of Pakistan with that of India. In which country, number 2, is agriculture more efficient or services more efficient? Explain how you have arrived at your answers. Discuss whether countries such as Pakistan and India might be concerned if a larger proportion of the labor force got new employment in industry or in the service sector, such as centers. This is a call center in India. Self-assessment task 1.6. Think carefully about the ways in which your own economy allocates resources. Make a few notes on the ways in which the government, the market mechanism, are responsible for decision making. Use the above information to insert your own economy into the scale shown in Figure 1.10. How has this relative position changed in recent years? What information might an economist use to quantify the relative importance of the government and the market mechanism within an economy? This is Figure 1.10, Mixed Economic Systems, Command Economy, and the Market Economy. This is weak, a market as a means of allocating resources. This is strong as a means of allocating resources. The command economy is strong at government control over allocation of resources, and the market economy is weak. Again, the command economy is when the government dictates or tells what price and quantity. The market economy lets the society and the price mechanism choose. So North Korea is more of a command economy. Albania is more of a command economy. Former Soviet Union is more of a command economy. Hungary, but now Pakistan, France, UK, Singapore, these countries are more of a market economy, with the US being the most market economy of these. Self-assessment task 1.7. Assume that an economy undergoes the process of reform shown in Figure 1.1. Give an example of an organization which will disappear with the move of competitive markets. Give an additional source of revenue for the government. Give a source of expenditure for the government which is no longer appropriate. Briefly describe how the roles of government and the private sector will change after implementation of economic reforms. 3. Discuss the extent to which it is appropriate for your country to adopt the market-based system shown in the lower part of the diagram. This is Figure 1.11. Talking about government control to market, competitive markets, and the transition economies moving from a command economy to a market economy. And this is the process of the government control, and this is the process of a competitive or market control, market economy. Practice questions. On completion of this chapter, you should be able to attempt the following short answer questions. A. Define the following terms: scarcity, opportunity cost. B. Draw a production possibilities frontier diagram to illustrate increasing opportunity costs. 2A. Copy the production possibilities frontier diagram shown in Figure 1.12 and indicate the following. This is the Figure 1.12. An inefficient production point, a production point that is unattainable. B. What is the additional cost in shirts of increasing the production of bananas from 1,000 pounds per year to 2,000 pounds per year? 3. State one reason why it is necessary to make economic choices. B. State 3 major questions that must be asked when deciding what goods and services should be produced. C. Susan uses the 2 hours available to her to answer the email rather than study for her economics examination. What is the cost to her of choosing to read emails rather than study for her economics examination? Briefly explain your answer. Number 4, A. Use the information in the following table to construct the production possibilities frontier. Mark the points, so we have a table here. Think of this as X and Y for mathematics, and then just plot the points. Then that's how you produce the production possibilities frontier. B. Mark the points 300 and 300 on your graph. Then this is X, Y. State why this point does not represent an efficient use of resources. What does this shape of the PPF you have drawn say about the opportunity cost of producing one more unit of pineapple or mango?